Hello, my name is Philip Totaro. I'm the founder and CEO of market research firm IntelStor. Welcome to your weekly dose of truth to power. Truth to Power examines data driven insights for the energy sector with a focus on renewables. On this week's episode, we take a deep dive into the commercial benefit of the tax credits in the United States and the potential impact to the industry if they were to be repealed. Well, even though we don't have a final reconciliation bill from the US Congress yet on the tax and budget, we want to take a look at the potential implications to renewable energy from some of the proposed language. The production tax credit, investment tax credit, and many manufacturing tax credits that would support a significant amount of jobs and tax revenue are likely to be cut. But how deep and how fast those cuts come will have a profound impact on the industry. So let's start with the production tax credits. Since the inception of the renewable energy production tax credits back in the 1990s, the US government has provided more than $150 billion to energy producers in the form of a subsidy that adds on, well, these days it's about $31 a megawatt hour on top of the power purchase contract price for the first 10 years of operation of the power generation facility. The existence of the production tax credits has sparked more than $500 billion in investment in the United States, much of it coming from overseas investors, US banks, US institutional investors, Canadian pension funds, and insurance companies. Now, IntelStor data on the production tax credits for wind energy shows that more than $66.3 billion has supported the wind energy sector's growth alone over more than 3 decades. All the major IPPs have benefited heavily from the production tax credits. And while the production tax credits have had fits and starts over the years due to the way the winds are blowing in Washington, I guess pun intended, we thought we had some certainty when the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. That was supposed to provide a production tax credit for another 10 years, the longest extension in the history of those credits. The new tax and budget bill in Congress today will likely result in the PTC being ramped down faster than the Inflation Reduction Act had originally anticipated. The proposed tax and budget bill seeks to phase out the PTC almost immediately, giving independent power producers just 60 days from the date the bill is enacted to begin construction, and then they must be commercially operational with their projects by the end of 2028 in order to qualify for any production tax credits at all. Now, senators who are involved in the conference committee, which is basically the group that resolves differences in the bill language between the U.S. House and the Senate, they've already said that the provision is likely to be removed in favor of a softer PTC phase out. So the most likely outcome is that the PTC will be allowed to ramp down through the end of 2028, and there will only be a requirement to complete construction by that time frame, as opposed to this 60-day start construction requirement. Nevertheless, this will impact production tax credit driven repowering project timelines. According to IntelStor data, there are now more than 53 gigawatts of wind energy in the United States that is at least 10 years old or older, which qualifies it for an asset repowering and PTC requalification. More than 45 gigawatts of that has already achieved a net positive return on capital, meaning that the full value of the capital invested in the project, let's say it was, $300 million, has already been paid back, and the project is now turning a profit for the owner or co-owners of the project. While not all the power generation projects will be repowered that are 10 years old or older, the available interconnection that they have, plus the lucrative nature of this production tax credit, has been driving asset owners to take advantage of the production tax credits while they can. Next, We'll look at the 45X manufacturing tax credits. Those would be phased out at the end of 2031 for any renewable energy power generation manufactured components that are sold prior to that date, except for wind energy, which is to be phased out at the end of 2027. Now, it's not like it's a big surprise. We all know why, given the hostility from the US administration and thus the Department of Energy towards wind energy. The wording of this provision in the bill is actually unlikely to be changed much in the final bill language. Solar and energy storage would at least remain until 2031, although there's a bit of a wrinkle on, foreign ownership, which we'll get to in a minute. Next, there's this language on transferability of tax credits that would be banned in the tax and budget bill. Now, technically, this is one of the more harmful measures proposed to be enacted since this transferability mechanism unlocks billions in capital finance for renewable energy projects. And while the language was technically pulled from the version of the tax and budget bill that passed the House, many people, including myself, expect that this kind of destructive language might be reinserted into this reconciliation bill as part of the compromise and horse trading that tends to go on with some of the other measures that the industry wants to be able to claw back. Many project financiers are currently leveraging future revenues from the production tax credits in exchange for loans that they pay for either part of the project capex or operational expenses of a renewable energy power generation facility. The elimination of the transferability of those tax credits would mean that a substantial portion, potentially up to 65% of the project finance that's intended to be used on future projects, would be nullified. And that's going to impact not only the pipeline of greenfield projects, but repowering as well. Now, the good news is that since the banks and other institutional investors stand to lose money that they've already invested or that they would invest in future project pipeline, they're likely to lobby in favor of killing that provision. So that's something that the renewable energy sector has in our favor, is that we can get the financiers engaged to help drive unfavorable things like that away. Now, lastly, there are prohibitions on foreign investment in project finance and manufacturing facilities that have been included in the bill language. And while that was originally intended to preclude countries like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea from making investments in the United States or shadow investments in the United States through some kind of foreign controlled subsidiary, the reality is that it's potentially jeopardizing substantially more investment based on the way that this whole concept of a foreign owned entity is defined in the bill. That doesn't necessarily imply that investment from any foreign owned entity, including those countries that I mentioned, would be prohibited, because we all know that while Russia, Iran, and North Korea don't really invest in the United States because of sanctions, China does through solar and energy storage manufacturing capacity just within the sphere of the renewable energy sector alone. Now, that doesn't mean that any foreign investment, including that from China, would necessarily be prohibited. It just means that they don't qualify for tax credit resulting from that investment. But that's a killer for investment that is intended to create jobs and tax revenue. If that language is left as is, the jobs and tax revenue in these key states and districts that some in Congress don't want to upset is potentially in jeopardy. And it also results in jeopardy for those men and women in Congress that have seats coming up for midterm elections in 2026. And since accountability is now back in fashion, you can expect that nobody wants to do anything that's going to jeopardize their job. So, overall, while this looks potentially bleak for renewable energy, anytime we've had a production tax credit phase out in the past, it typically triggers a knee jerk reaction from project financiers and independent power producers. Basically, the industry tends to adopt a use it or lose it kind of attitude when it comes to these tax credits, which near term will actually accelerate some build out or repowering before the ability to do so is not financially feasible if we see the expiration of the production tax credits. This will make companies who own assets look to M&A deals potentially to get in, some additional asset owners that would help de-risk projects, but it also enables service providers that have any kind of asset life extension capabilities. They're going to become very popular since asset owners at the end of the day still want to ensure that they see a net positive return on their investments. Thank you for joining me this week. I'm Philip Totaro, and this has been your weekly dose of truth to power. Follow us on IntelStor's YouTube channel as well as your favorite audio platforms. And visit www.intelstor.com to join more than 200,000 subscribers to our renewable energy data solutions. A full analysis of the USA or any renewable energy market globally is available to subscribers. And you can register today for the next Wind Summit event in Houston, Texas this October. Visit www.windsummit.org and join hundreds of your industry colleagues from companies like NextEra, EDPR, EDF, Pattern Energy, Clearway, Apex Clean Energy, and more. We hope to see you there.